Hello everyone, my name is Stacy and welcome to The Reading Alchemist. So, it is June, which means it is time for the mid-year Freakout tag. So let's get into it. I'm not doing a lot of the questions that I did last year. I found out that when I was going through my list this year, that some of the questions that it asks don't quite fit my reading taste and that sort of items. So I decided to eliminate some of the questions that are on the mid-year Freakout tag and just do the ones that I want. Not entirely certain how well in depth I will go into the books and stuff. I don't think I'll give synopsis and stuff for the books. Unless I'm really feeling into it, I probably won't give a big detailed synopsis of the book, but I will probably mention why the book is answering the questions that's answering. I have decided to do one book per question this time. Last year I think I did more than one, except the very last question. And I decided to make all the regular questions just a different book for it. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, the first question is, what is the best book that I have read so far this year? And for that, I am going to go with The Heartstopper Yearbook by Alice Oseman. I mean, honestly, you guys know this already. Alice Oseman is one of my favorite authors. And particularly her Heartstopper series in general is my favorite. And this book came out last year, but I didn't get to it last year. I got to it this year. I knew I was going to love it from the moment I read it, and I decided to at least read it before I read Heartstopper Volume 5, which comes out later this year. And honestly, this is the best book I've read this year. Not only do we get illustration and stuff from when Alice Oseman was coming up with Charlie, there are also a couple of mini comics in here as well, which add just the more emphasis and love to this story. And it got, on my rating system, it has gotten the highest rating so far. So this is definitely the best book that I've read so far this year. Even though it's not technically a book, it's on Goodreads. I'm going to count it as a book. It's very, very cute. If you guys haven't checked out the Heartstopper graphic novel series by Alice Oseman, I highly consider that you do so. Question number 2 is best sequel. So to me, sequel means it's not the first book. And for that, I'm going to go with Lore Olympus Volume 3 by Rachel Smythe. At the time of filming this, I actually have not read Lore Olympus Volume 4 yet, and out of all the books I've read so far this year that are a part of the series, this one has gotten the highest rating, which I am very happy about. Lore Olympus is a modern-day retelling of the Hades and Persephone Greek myth love story. I especially love the illustrations in this and how the story is told, as I think that the Hades and Persephone retelling really works well for a modern day setting. And what I also like is at the front of the book, and what some books that I read do, is they put in the trigger warnings, which emphasize the reading of the story more when it includes the content warnings right at the beginning. Because when you read the original Greek myth, there are no content warnings for those. And it's very, very nice when a book does it. Also nice when at the end of the book there are also links to websites where you can go and resources if you are suffering with some of the issues that are mentioned in this book. And also, I've never actually read the Hades and Persephone Greek myth. I've heard about it, so I do know what sort of happens. I don't think at this moment in time I probably will read the original Greek myth, as this one tends to tell the story about as good as I think that Greek myth would. And plus, all the beautiful color illustrations. I love that Hades is blue. One of my favorite movies growing up as a child and still to this day is Hercules, the Disney movie. And in that, Hades has blue hair, and have Hades be blue colored here in this Greek myth retelling in graphic novel form is really, really great. And plus, the pink and blue go really well together, I think, in my opinion. I'm looking forward to reading Volume 4 very, very soon. So yeah, this is the best sequel I've read so far. And then, the best new release that I've read so far this year. I haven't read a lot of new releases so far this year. I'm trying a new thing with my reading where I'm mood reading and stuff, and I'm using a spinner wheel to pick my reads, so when a new read comes up, they're sporadic. I'm also trying to pre-order books, and it's fine if I save books and not read them immediately after they come out, as it will improve my rating and my love and my hype for luck. So, my best new release that I've read so far this year is A Day of Fall Night by Samantha Shannon, which is a prequel to Priory of the Orange Tree, which I read last year and gave 5 stars. I should also mention that, of course, I gave the Heartstopper yearbook 5 stars, and I gave Lore Olympus Volume 3 5 stars, and I did give A Day of Fall Night 5 stars. Priory of the Orange Tree and A Day of Fall Night are 3 different characters and stories, kind of all intertwined, and they mesh well together. I have heard people mention when this book came off that it reads like a textbook. I honestly do not think so, and I think it's because I read Priory of the Orange Tree last year, back in October, and I read this in March, about roughly when it came out, so I didn't have the huge gap in between of reading the books, and I think that helped, and this did not feel like I was reading a textbook. Yes, there were some textbook moments when, of course, we're learning into the histories. You learn more history in this book and of the workings of the Priory, which I absolutely loved. As in the Priory of the Orange Tree, my 2 favorite parts were when we were in the Queendom of Venice and when we were at the Priory. And in this story, those were also my favorite points that I loved. And also, we learn more about a thing that is mentioned in the Priory of the Orange Tree, which is, of course, we learn more about the Nameless One in this, which I absolutely enjoyed, because I love it when an author writes a book and then later writes something else set in the same universe, and it talks about a thing that was mentioned in the book previous, and it helps tie it to it. And Have It Done for this is very good. So far, Samantha Shannon is one of my favorite authors. I'm looking forward to reading her Bone season series. But yeah. Also, I think the biggest book I've read so far this year, but this took me less time than reading The Priory of the Orange Tree, and I'm very happy about that. So yeah, this is my best new release that I've read so far this year. Alright, my most anticipated release for the second half of the year, I have mentioned it a little bit in this video, and that is Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. At the beginning of the year, we thought this book was coming out in February, but its release has been pushed to November. With my best book of the year being Heartstopper Yearbook, my most anticipated release is Heartstopper Volume 5, which actually is not going to be the last Heartstopper volume, which I'm very thankful for. I do have a theory of where these last 2 volumes are going to go, but I honestly really don't care because I love when I can predict something that I may think is going to happen in the book and it actually comes true. I am really happy when I can do that because it just makes me so much more of a reader. So yeah, my most anticipated release for the second half of the year is Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. This is also a 5-star prediction. My biggest disappointment for 2023 has been Ocean's Echo by Everina Maxwell. The reason why this is the biggest disappointment is when I read Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell, I really enjoyed it and ended up giving it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I thought her second book, Ocean's Echo, would probably get similar rating. But I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. And the reason why is that I didn't really gel with the characters in this book as much as I gelled with the characters for Winter's Orbit. I really didn't gel with the characters as much as this one, even though this one had my favorite trope in it, which is the fake dating trope. I really like the fake dating trope, and this book has the fake dating trope in it. But in this one, her concept of the science in this book, because this is a sci-fi, I didn't really gel with. It took me a very long time for me to get into the book and to sort of know what was going on. And even for the ending of this book, I knew what was going on in Winter's Orbit. In this one, I did not know what was going on in the ending of this book. I'm not entirely certain if I will read anything else from Everina Maxwell, and I'm thinking of unhauling both this book and Winter's Orbit. This was my biggest disappointment. My biggest surprise may actually not be totally considered a surprise, but I'm going to tell you why, and I think it's going to make sense. So my biggest surprise of this year was In the Lives of Puppets by T.J. Klune. Now, T.J. Klune is my all-time favorite author. And when I heard that T.J. Klune was doing a retelling of Pinocchio, I was a little bit skeptical, as when I was in high school and college, I read the original Pinocchio story and I really didn't like it. I'm not that big into classic literature, and the story of Pinocchio just isn't my favorite. So I was a little bit skeptical reading this book. I would think I would like it just because it's T.J. Klune, but I didn't realize I'd like it as much. I figured that this book would get 5 stars from me, but it would be a sort of low 5 stars, which is actually entirely the case. This book ended up getting a 5 stars, but a low 5 stars, which 5 stars is 5 stars. I can't give it anything higher than that. But the main character in this book, as T.J. Klune does with most of his books, is they're LGBT. And in this story, our main character, Victor, is asexual. And I haven't read a lot of books with asexual representation, and this really worked. The spectrum that I fall into in the LGBTQ plus community is more so of the asexual and demisexual side, so to read a book where I could really feel myself represented in Victor was top tier. And I liked this better as a retelling of Pinocchio than the actual story of Pinocchio. as now I've appreciated the story of Pinocchio a whole lot better because now I just want this. The reason why this is the biggest surprise is I didn't think I would like it as much as I did and take out so much that I did from it. And I'm very glad to have read it, and I'm very glad it got 5 stars. And of course, I will be reading T.J. Klune's other works. That brings me to question number 7, which is my favorite author. Of course, by no one's surprise, I just mentioned it, my favorite author is T.J. Klune. So far, between this year and last year, I have read 10 of his books. This year, by T.J. Klune, I have reread both The House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door. I've read In the Lives of Puppets. I've read Bear, Otter, and the Kid this year, and I read The Consumption of Magic, all by T.J. Klune. That's 5. 5 of his books. And yes, of course, they all got 5 stars. T.J. Klune is my favorite author for other reasons. And that, number 1, I love his writing style, how he can be really funny at times, and then hit you with the hard, gut-wrenching moments. I also love that he's written LGBTQ plus, only LGBTQ plus books, my favorite. He likes to do male-male romance, which is entirely my favorite. His settings are really descriptive, and he's not afraid to mention the past and to use it in a way that's beneficial. So yeah, T.J. Klune is my all-time favorite author. I'm continuing to work through his backlist right now, and I will be reading whatever they put out. Question 8 is a book that has made me cry. And this year, I'm going to put the only reread that's mentioned on this list, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. So far, I have reread this book twice and read it for the first time once. So I've read it 3 times. Each time I've read this book, I have cried. And it's not like just like 1 or 2 tears. No, I've absolutely sobbed every single time reading this book. Every single time. Eventually, I want to annotate this book and mark my favorite quotes and stuff. And I'm worried that even when I annotate it slowly and do that reread, that I'm still going to cry. I will probably reread this book for the rest of my days whenever I'm feeling down and depressed and I need a good cry. This will probably be the book that I turn to. The book that has made my heart happy this year. A lot of the books on this stack could work for this prompt. But the book that I'm thinking I'm going to use is Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. I mean, can you blame me for putting this on here as the book that made me happy? Nick and Charlie make my heart happy. What more can I say? At this moment in time, I have read all but 1 of Alice Oseman's books, and all of them so far have made my heart happy. This one, I think, has made my heart happy the most, besides the Heartstopper graphic novels, as it's Nick and Charlie. Out of all the, book ships that I've read, any ship by T.J. Klune and Alice Oseman are my all-time favorites. But if I were to pick a book OTP, it would be Nick and Charlie. Hands down, 100%. And it's the reason why this tiny novella made my heart happy. Also, I wasn't really expecting more panels in this as there are. This is make my heart happy. 100% this makes my heart happy. I'm very happy to have read it and own it. And Nick and Charlie are my favorites. I love them so much. This made my heart very happy. The most beautiful book that I have bought this year. I'm actually going to put a book that I haven't read yet. I've obtained within the last, 2 weeks. Just because I think it's stunning. Is Lore Olympus Volume 4 by Rachel Smythe. I haven't even read this book yet, and this cover is stunning. This is actually the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, and they have an exclusive cover. And it's Hades on the front. And you may not know this about me, but for sometimes in books, if they're done really well, I'm a sucker for the bad guy. But Hades never truly is the bad guy, and honestly, to have him on the cover of this book is absolutely stunning. I love the blue, the pink. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous cover. And I'm really looking forward to reading this book. This is a 5-star prediction. And then finally, last question. The books I still need to read before the end of the year. I'm going to list more than one book here. I only own one physically. The first book that I need to read before the end of the year is Sun and Star by Rick Riordan and Mark Shiro. This is a standalone story set in the Percy Jackson series. It is of course, story about Nico. Nico D'Angelo, which is son of Hades, and Will Solus, the son of Apollo. And these two, of course, get together in the end of the Heroes of Olympus series during the course of the Trials of Apollo series. They're together. And this is their story. I'm really looking forward to reading this book, as in the Percy Jackson universe, besides Percy and Annabeth, my other favorite ship is Nico and Will. So I'm very much looking forward to reading this book. The other book that I need to read before the end of the year, still haven't, is of course Lore Olympus Volume 4. I still have not read this book. This book came out like a week and a half ago to 2 weeks ago. But I do need to read this book before the end of the year, because I think Volume 5 may also be releasing this year. I'm not entirely certain of that, but I do need to read Volume 4 this year as well. Also, I've mentioned this book in this video already, but I do need, of course, read Heartstopper Volume 5 when that's released this year in November. That's probably like A Day of Fallen Light. That book I will probably read as soon as I get my hands on the copy. That is a drop everything and read book. And then the last book that I need to read before the end of the year is The Chalice of the Gods by Rick Riordan. And the reason why I need to read this book is because it is actually a continuation of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, technically book 6. And Percy Jackson and the Olympians is one, actually I think it's my favorite middle grade book series, and I'm very much looking forward to reading that book, because I did not know that Rick Riordan was coming out with a 6th Percy Jackson book until last year, and I am very much all for it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more bookish content from me. Comment down below if you agree with any of these books on this list from my mid-year book Freakout tag. If you agree with them or have read them this year. Comment down below your best book that you've read so far this year, as I'd love to check them out. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. And we are the one within the all.